welcome to Helen Joy Creates. As I said in my previous video, this week we are going to be looking at some flower designs. So I actually have a bit of a bonus this week and we are going to do 6 designs rather than 5. So I hope you enjoy this. I start most of my designs with drawing a circle, an inner circle and an outer circle, and then filling that with my sort of petal circle, what will be my petals. I tend to prefer the look of 5 petals on a flower, but to be honest, doing 6 is easier because of the symmetry of it. So if you prefer doing 6, then you can do that. So I start by filling in that inner circle, doing some little mini petals around the edge. Then using my pencil guidelines just to draw my outer petals. You see on that last petal I actually missed following my original outline and it ended up being a little thin, but just take your time and practice that if you want to make sure that your petals are all the same size. And then if you saw my last video with the leaf tutorial, then hopefully you'll have been practicing some different leaf shapes and can add a leaf to your flower just to give it another dimension. I also like adding in a little bit of a curly vine stem out of the flower as well, just gives it a little pretty design. This next flower is very much the same basic design to start with, but as you can see, by adding different detail gives it a different look. So the inner circle this time, instead of doing mini petals, I just do a line, an extra circle around my filled in circle in the middle. Then for the petals, I just make sure I add a little more emphasis on the shape. So the points I make a bit more obvious and then try and make sure I give the bottom half of the petal a much more rounded look following my circle template, pencil template. Again, as you can see there, it always seems to be on the 3rd or 4th one I draw, I seem to go in a little bit. So I obviously need to practice that a bit. I add some detail at the tip of the petal this time rather than on the inside. Then also add some little dots in the middle and just a slightly wiggly line to join them to the centre. I just find it's more effective than just a straight line. It gives it a little bit more movement to the overall design. I decided to go for a slightly more grass shaft type style leaf for this one, and also just to show you again the difference of how something looks when it has the black background and just makes it pop out. I coloured in the background so you can see the difference when you've just got your drawing outline on the one side but then the filled in background on the other, just the difference in effect that it makes. It's amazing how just changing a small detail can change the whole overall look of your design. So as you can see on this next flower, it's again the same basic kind of shape, but we just change the tops of the petal shape. So we do that by just making I guess it's like an M shape, but you have 3 ridges. So you have the one in the middle, which is higher, and then 2 on the side, which are slightly lower down from that middle central one. Be aware when you're drawing your petals to keep that rounded shape and not come to a point in the centre, because the petals want to have I guess a wider join at the bottom and not be too slim where they meet the centre. To help you as a guideline for when you're doing the centre details, it helps to draw a pencil line from the dip in the petal top shape, the M as it were, to follow the line from the centre out, just so you're getting a wide shape and that it's following the shape of the petal itself. Then I go for one of the leaves that we did in the previous video, as you can see, and it kind of mimics a similar shape to the petal. We're going to change it up a little bit now for day 4 and go for a more daisy-like design, so a lot more petals in this one. But again, we are going to start with our centre circle and outer circle again, but this time we're going to divide it up just with lines. So we'll divide it into quarters, then eighths, and then sixteenths. So just keep dividing in half your lines basically. So what I do is I use my guidelines as the centre of my petals, as you can see, and just make sure that in each section I am following the lines to make sure I'm going outward and not making my petals flop over to one side. If you want to be extra safe and make sure you're doing it right, it's worth doing each quarter's petal first, so the 12 o'clock, 3, 6 and 9 o'clock petals, and then filling in the other petals just to make sure you're getting that right. Then for some detail, I just add some little dots into the centre, and I made the dots more dense around the edge circle line, just to give it a little, I guess, more blurriness, and for there not to be an obvious line, and just a few little extra little lines at the centre there. This next design starts with the same basic template as our first flowers, but is a more artistic impression of a flower rather than a realistic looking one. But like I said, the basic template that we start with is exactly the same. We do our inner and outer circle, our petal circles, either 5 or 6 depending which you prefer, and then go from there. So the way I did it was I followed the outer edge of my petals first, so did a dot at the top and followed those lines to the centre of the flower. Sorry, my hand got in the way of the camera there a bit. Then just randomly added 3 more dots in the middle between those two and drew some wavy lines down to meet at the centre. So just doing that all the way round. You can change it up how many are in the centre, the order that you do them. So for some of them I did the middle one is the tallest, sometimes it's the shorter one, and just mixed it up a little bit. And you can just have a play around with this, having fun, maybe adding some more dots, maybe going smaller as you get nearer the centre. And I generally find I like having odd numbers rather than even numbers, as you can see from my 5 petals and then here my sort of 5 stamen type design in here. But you know, some people prefer even numbers, some people prefer odd numbers. Just, yeah, have a play around and have some fun with it. I thought I'd give you a bonus day this week, as roses are a flower that I think shouldn't be left out. So this one starts differently. We start with a circle and then I add the petals around it. I tend to try and work in 3s to start with, as you can see, and the petals always overlap each other. So the centre of the new petal should always be in the center of where the ones before joined, if that makes sense. And don't be frightened to give your petal a bit of a wavy shape, not always keeping it exactly round. And some can be thinner, some can be fatter. It actually looks more natural and realistic when you change the shape up a little bit more. If you look at a rose, you'll see also that the inner petals are much tighter than the outer ones. So you do want to make your outer petals wider than the ones that you start with on the inside. Then on to the leaves, and again, if you want a tutorial on how to do that, if you hadn't seen my video from last week, you can go and check out that tutorial for how to do the leaves. Well, there we have it. We have done 6 flowers today, and I hope it's been useful for you and that you can start putting these flowers and leaves together to start doing some final bigger designs. Thank you for watching. Please remember to leave a thumbs up and see you next time.